Why you don't put the kibosh on your boy Chris Nelson?
The what?
Huh?
Well, you know what happened with it was he did it, and it's kind of been his. I take that back. Beforehand, Gary did it, so Gary was looking for him so they could do it together, and then he came back the very next play and made a great play and did it. And I just, it's, you know, I get it. I mean, to me, but we're at the University of Texas, and we don't need to do that. To me, I like I told him on the bench, I'm not trying to take people's swag away, but.
Yeah.
You know, there's a fine line to disrespecting the game, and I just thought multiple times. Plus, we're going to get flagged, and it's,
Right.
you know, we're running pretty decent there, and boy, that would have been really, really awful, you know, to do something like that and get a penalty.
Is it funny that here you are now trying to keep them from having too much fun?
Well, I think that's, you know, there's,
It seems like a good
but
problem.
to me, I just told him on the bench. I said, hey, you want to celebrate with each other and do stuff. I'm good with that, but let's not self-promote. I just don't like that. That's just not the way I think the game needs a certain type of respect. And I think when you start self-promoting, you know, it takes away from the team.
There was a lot of talk at the beginning of the season about whether Chris could match the production that you guys got from Puna last year. So through 4 games, how would you rate what he's done compared to what you guys
It's
got?
close. I don't think it's at, I think Puna made some plays that were, you know, kind of twitchier that he could make in the backfield, but Chris is playing really, really well. So if, you know, I don't know how that matches up in overall production. I think the one thing I will say about Puna is I thought he got better as the season went along. I think Nelly's playing at a high level. We'll see if he continues, but they're close.
Going into this week, did you expect to possibly have to prepare for 2 quarterbacks with everything that's going on in Manhattan on their side of the ball?
No, we normally do that anyway. So, I mean, if they're playing too, like some people are just, you know, he's a great one and maybe, you know, you're going to watch film on it. But through the first 3 games before last game, they're actually playing both of them anyway. So it wasn't like a surprise to sit here and say, like, which guy are you going to get prepared for? Because we had to be ready for both of them. It wasn't one of these things where it's like, we believe we're getting this. We came into the game planning on Sunday and said, we've got to prepare for both of them.
To that point, Delton had a lot of success on the ground last year.
Yeah.
He's a little bit quicker and
Yeah.
more willing to go between the tackles than Thompson. What do you see in him?
I see that. I mean, I see a guy with really good vision that's really patient setting up blocks, and I thought he threw the ball really well versus us last year too. So I mean, it's, you know, he's a dual threat guy. He's very quick. He does have another gear, so he's a guy that we, you know, obviously we've got to be able to try to corral.
Coach, you have a group of guys who really haven't enjoyed much success, beating teams in back-to-back weeks, or even having something as simple as a 3-game win streak. How do you teach them how to handle this little amount of success you've been having so far?
Well, like I told them on, I believe it was on Sunday afternoon, I said, you know, me personally, when I don't do well, if I fail, the first thing I say is what happened and try to figure out and work harder. And then even if I have success, you know, why did I have success, and now work harder and reinvest. So that's been kind of the word that we've been preaching to our guys is reinvest. If you have some results, you know, don't look at it and say, oh, we're going to have a party and take all of our earnings and do that. Let's take this money and let's put it back into the company and let's try to make the company even better. So to me, it's whether you don't do well or whether you do well, always work harder. And that's what we've been trying to preach to our guys. And I think that for the last 3 days, you know, I haven't seen any of the things that you would say like, okay, they're distracted or X, Y, Z, and just trying to have a routine. And me personally have thought they've stayed the routine for at least the last 3 days.
Is it the way that Sean Robinson, you know, they got down the field really quick, and then it's like the defense settles in, you know, after the first drive or two. I mean,
It's been that way. I mean,
yeah.
and I don't know whether that is seeing the speed that we're seeing and trying to get adjusted to it, or just whether or not it's just catching on with, you know, in our league too. I will say this: the majority of the coordinators and normal offensive coordinators will go out and script, you know, maybe their top 5 plays or top 10 plays. So it's going to be really really hard to almost to perfection. So when they get out there and they execute at a high level and you're not reactive, it can look that way. But we've talked about starting faster. You know, it's one of those things where we're trying to get better and we're going against our second offense and sometimes versus our first offense to try to simulate the speed that we're getting, so it's not like, oh, this is how fast they are in comparison to some of our look team stuff. So it's been addressed.
Right.
How did you feel with Jeff fared last week in place of Malcolm?
Solid. I thought he was solid. He makes a big play towards the tight red zone that saves us some points. But, it's fundamentals and techniques with him. But, he, like I've been saying beforehand, we have to play him in 4 different spots. So for him to go out there and play one and settle in and make a handful of plays for us, and, I thought he played solid.
Kansas State's one of the few teams in the conference where you may have a situation where you have 4 linebackers on the field. If that's possible, if that's the case, what would that group look like?
Well, if we had to play with them, it would go down to either Cameron Townsend or we can take a guy like Brecken Hager and we can play him up. So we've got some flexibility in our package because of what we did in fall camp. Unfortunately, we had a whole bunch of injuries at linebacker. And it's, not a blessing to get people hurt, but at least gave us options to rep guys in certain positions so we could build some more depth.
Is Deli he missed a lot of camp.
Yeah.
Is he having to catch up in terms
A little
of
bit.
reps?
Yeah, no, it's
more
not.
than
It's
health?
it's more the mental stuff and how far we've come along in terms of our call menu from when he was playing with us in fall. So when he was with us in the spring, we kind of go through our package, and then we go into fall camp, and then we start the game plan stuff. So he's got to get caught up with that stuff.
How far away is he?
He's close. He's close.
Todd, with your number 2 D line, what do you like that you're getting out of the Wilbon and Bimage and TQ right now?
I think they're playing extremely hard. Like a guy like Bimage, it's he'll give you everything he has, and that's the part that you need in terms of those type of guys. And we're trying to be smart with Brecken and with Charles because it's going to be a long season. So that's the one thing I think that you saw last week was you kind of mindful about, where we're going to be at in week 8, 9, 10, and letting those guys get some more opportunities as long as they deserve it. And they do. They practice really, really hard. So they deserve to get the reps, and I think they're playing solid.
Do you feel like you're getting to a point, and I don't know if this is the goal, I would imagine it is, but do you feel like you're getting to a point where you're close to being legitimately too deep, where there's not that much drop off?
Yeah, I don't know if I can say that. But I will. We have 2 older guys and Hager. 3 older guys with Nelly, and so there is a gap there. But that comes though. I'm sure when you looked at Hager and Amenahue when they were puppies or sophomores, you would probably say there's a big gap to the guys that they were behind too. So we've got to catch up on that and continue to push those guys along because we're gonna, it's a long road. And if you burn the wheels off those guys, you're gonna get nothing in November.
Was the Bimmage's play, was that a classic example of just get around the ball and make something
That's
happen?
it. But he does that all the time. That was the one thing that really attracted us to him when we offered him. Yeah, it was like, okay, what are we getting out of this guy? Okay, he's not 6'4", he's not this, but what does he do? He's a tough kid that plays extremely hard, got a great motor, a great human being. So let's go on him, and then we're getting production out of him.
If you could redshirt Jomo, Coburn, is that something you'd like to do?
Well, this is a little bit of a juggling act because you get the 4 games, okay? So, I think everybody's trying to hold their cards until the last second to see are we going to get an injury? Are guys going to get worn out a little bit? So in the ideal world, we'll see. I think if you came back in week 9 and you said, okay, what are you guys going to do with these guys? I think I'll be able to give you that answer. But there is a lot of strategy to this, especially in those positions where it's like, okay, let's figure this thing out. When do these guys normally start to break down, whatever that time is. Maybe that's early November. Well, what do we want to do? We want to hold off before we say we're going to go to 4 games, and how do we want to do this? So those guys are kind of classic cases of, relax. It's not panic time. We know we're still solid up front. But I promise you this, when we get into November, there's going to be a lot of hard conversations about what we're going to do with them and when we're going to do it with them.
Coach, talk about the combo of Brandon Jones and Caden Stearns back at that safety position. What are you seeing out of them? How happy are you with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's big speed, and I told you guys about Caden, beforehand, just his instincts and his vision. I mean, it's elite stuff, so it's good to see him. He finishes the play on the sidelines, and then the play he makes, after we had the turnover and we scored was, to me, one of the bigger plays in the game, and that was him just being a football player. He kind of drifts out and sees the quarterback and comes back in. So, I mean, Brandon, I've said this since camp, that he was probably our most valuable guy because of what he has to do and all the plays that he's making. And then with Caden back there, gives us another guy that can track the ball. So like I told you, this is like this defense runs through the linebackers to the safeties, and obviously the guys up front got to be great for those guys to work. So, I mean, really, really impressed with both those kids.
What you like most from that game?
The grit. I thought we showed a lot of grit. We gave up plays, and then we boned up in the tight red zone, and we gave up a play, and then we get an interception, and they battled. That was the part that I was really, really proud of. Is it seemed like every positive that TCU got, we came back, and we kind of took a deep breath, where I've seen us beforehand buckle a little bit. And to go in there and get the 4 turnovers and to me play, that game could have been 21-0. We hold them. Chris gets beat, but then Chris makes a sickening play down there, saves us 4 points. If he doesn't do that, so playing well in the tight red zone with touchdowns and then getting turnovers was the key to that game. But we showed a lot of grit.
What do you see from Brandon Jones in terms of his ball skills in practice? Because I know a lot of people have had questions about that translating into games.
Yeah, I mean, he's good. I mean, to me, it's some of the stuff and where he's coming from. He runs 22 miles per hour when he's got pads on. So, we'll continue to work with him on that stuff. But I think eventually he'll turn into like what Caden's doing and some of the ball skills that he has right now. So that's just practice stuff. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of times where he's running so fast that sometimes he kind of misjudges balls. So we work on it in practice and try to get better at it.
What about all the explosive plays that the secondary's given up? How do you limit those? Stuff like, Chris Boyd biting on a double move when he doesn't have safety help.
Yeah, well, it's practice, it's discipline. He's an aggressive guy, and he puts it on film, and people are going to go after him. So it's just telling him. He said, hey, listen, this is how you have to play this. And just the proof is in the film, because he gets double moved because of what he has already put on film. So it's Chris, hey, listen, this is what you're going to get. People are going to try to go after you and do this stuff, and it's part of playing out there. But he can become more disciplined. He knows it.
Speaking of talking about Brandon Jones running, I mean, the whole thing last week was TCU's speed.
Yeah.
Have we undersold y'all's speed?
Well, I don't. In the back end, I would say probably yes.
Okay.
I would say at the safety position we're fast, and at the corner position we're fast. We are a fast ball club in the back end. Now up front and at the second level, I mean, Gary's a different animal, but I think when you're looking at the back end in terms of what we see when they put GPS monitors on our guys and put it on practice, the numbers that come back, they're pretty fast.
What about Wheeler? What are you seeing from him?
Solid. It's consistent. He does a lot of the stuff about getting us lined up and those things. But I'm one of those guys, and I think Anthony's the same way, because I think his career is, at least early on, has been like really consistent. And I'm like, we need to take the next step. And I think there's times where he does, and I think there's times where, I'd just like to see. I told him the other day, like, just cut it loose, man. You're my dude. I want you to go to sleep at night and say, hey, listen, I made a play in the pass game, or I cut it loose, and like the hit on the quarterback, he's coming free. Like, just cut it loose, man. Rip it right there. So there's things that I've just got to continue to talk with him, because he's such a conscientious kid. He's he wants to do well. He's a captain. Sometimes it's like, hey, listen, you're my guy, man. Don't worry about anything. Just go, go, go. And I think there's a handful more plays that he can make for us. But he's been very, very solid.
What's the hope for Delhi once he's caught up, and what?
To be in the rotation. To be, in my opinion, to be in the number 4 spot. That's how I see him. So you have Gary, Wheeler, and then you have Jeff right now, and then you're looking at which one of those guys. Is it Joe Asai going to be 4? Is it Deli going to be 4? Who is going to be number 4? So if we do want to play 4 linebacker system, this is the way that we'll do it. So he's got some work to do. To me, Joseph, even though Joseph plays on the outside, we cross-train everybody. So Joseph right now, in my opinion, is number 4, unless you're starting to get into some of the Hager talk about playing on the outside up like we did versus Maryland.
What would his ideal position be?
Middle linebacker.
How I haven't seen an offensive line coach celebrate, as much as you have the last few weeks. I mean, has this been fun for you and your guys?
Yeah, Saturdays are fun, because you get to go out and compete, and the last few Saturdays have been good.
Mm-hmm.
But we're focused on the next one.
Sure.
Yeah, anytime that you get a chance, the games are supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. What have you liked most in the last few weeks?
we played really hard.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't played 100% completely clean, obviously, and we still got a lot of work to do from execution, technique, and fundamental standpoint. But the guys have been playing, pretty hard, and that's been good to see. Now we just got to clean up some things and continue developing.
How impressed were you about Sam Cosme right example?
Sam's brings. He's a really athletic kid, very explosive. He's got. He approaches the game the way you want him to. He's got toughness about him. Yancey and the guys down in the weight room have done a really good job with him, during his redshirt year and putting on some size. Still like him to get a little bit bigger, but he's been, he battles, so makes up for it with just effort and strain. So.
What are guys that are grading out highest, like routinely, week by week for you?
It's funny because we have a grading system. 85% would be a championship level grade, and I think in the last few games we've only had about 3 guys that have graded out at that level. That factors in not only their assignment but technique and fundamentals. So I've had a lot of guys that are close to it. They're in the 80s, but we're pretty. We like to stick to the standard of 85% as being a championship level grade, and so hopefully we'll have some more guys grade out. In other words,
Who were the 3 that were you?
geez, I can't even remember. I think Elrod. Maybe Kerstetter, one of those, and Vahe. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
At least at least three guys in the middle. At least that's.
yeah, they've been doing. We've been solid, but not. We're just scratching the surface, really, how good
Right.
they can be, and it's they see it, on when we do things well, we got a chance to be really good, and then when we don't, we don't. We got to execute all the time. So.
Right. What could you take us back? To when Shaq gets hurt, and that, you're going to shift guys down. Cosme goes in. Just what was your talk with the guys, and because Shaq obviously is not just a center; he's kind of the brains of it too.
Well, he's been a great leader for us, and
Yeah.
and it's good to have him back this week. At least in practice and that sort of thing. We'll see how things sort out over the weekend, but Sammy played in the Maryland game, so it wasn't anything new for him to be in there. Elrod and Kerstetter have both repped at center since training camp started, which is something that I really believe in, is trying to get guys as many reps as possible through training camp at different positions, so that it gives you flexibility. You can create depth with a fewer amount of players. And So those guys had rep there. So we kind of knew what we had, and we knew what we were going to get with them. Obviously, they hadn't played a game there, so it's a little bit different, when you got to, when the lights are on and the stadium's full and all that stuff. But, so it's nice to have that flexibility, and certainly Elijah provides that, Derek provides that. We've kind of left Calvin at left tackle and let him get settled in there. And then once we got into training camp, we put Sammy at right tackle and kind of let him get settled in because he's still a young player. And you don't want to have guys, young players, you want to give them kind of a spot, let them get settled, and then once they do, then you can move them around a little bit.
We saw Calvin come off the field for a couple plays dealing with whatever he was dealing with. And
That shoe came off.
And Denzel went in for his snaps.
Right.
Is he the first tackle
He
in
is.
either spot? And
Yeah.
then would somebody like Tope be the first interior
Possibly.
guy?
It matters how, Denzel's repped at guard as well. Tope's repped at both guards. JP Urquidez has repped at both tackles. So we've gotten multiple, all of those guys have played multiple positions. Denzel's played all four besides center. And we have what we call a helmet plan or an equipment plan. So if something goes wrong with somebody's equipment, you're in the middle of a drive, the helmet comes off, guys got to come out for a play. So we just call it the helmet plan. And, to be honest with you, I didn't even know. I was standing on the sidelines. I'm looking down at for what the next play call is. I hear somebody say, we need a left tackle, and Denzel ran out there, and Calvin came off. And what's wrong with Calvin? His shoe came off. Okay, he was out there for one play, and we rolled it back out. So the guys executed that well, which was good. They understood, they understand how the rotation works. So, but yeah, Denzel could play any of the four spots besides center. And like I said, Tope's repped at both guards, JP's repped at both tackles, so it gives you some flexibility.
How do you feel about what you guys have gotten out of Calvin so far?
It's been good. I mean, he's a very smart player, very smart. One of the smartest players I've ever coached, maybe the smartest. He's one of these guys that you don't have to tell him. You only got to tell him something once, and he gets it. He's been probably more solid in pass protection. Like to get a little bit more movement in the run game with him, and he knows that. I'm not telling you anything I haven't talked to him about, but so that's probably the biggest thing for him to improve on is point of attack stuff in the run game. But pass protection's been pretty good. He got a little loose in his sets this past Saturday, so we had to tighten that back up again. So because he gave up a couple of pressures that were basically technique and fundamental issues.
Coach, over the past 3 weeks, it seems like your offensive line continues to get stronger, especially in the second half and closing out games. Is that something that you're seeing? And if so, just kind of give me your thoughts on that.
Well, that's just a testament to Yancey and his crew down in the weight room. And strength and conditioning is such a big part of what we do. And when you're a tempo team, the one thing that I like to keep track of as the game's going on is just how many snaps we've been able to play, and I think we're probably averaging right around 80 snaps a game, somewhere in that range, which is, if you're getting 40 snaps each half, that's where the conditioning level and can really play in your favor, and we've been able to do that, so it's been a good deal.
Would it be ideal to redshirt Denzel, if possible, since he'd never had that redshirt season that was kind of, burn playing like less than 20 snaps, I think?
Yeah, we've talked about all that stuff with the new red shirt rules. We'll just see how the season plays out as we, go forward. Denzel's, I said right now he's kind of our sixth man. He knows that, and we'll see how it plays out as we go. But certainly there are options for all those guys. Which it's really nice that the guy could play 4 games and still redshirt now because it helps with their development as well. It's one thing to practice, and it's another thing to actually get out and play in games. And so we'll see how that unfolds as the rest of the season goes.
Coach, you guys, how would you and the offensive staff describe how the running game overall has been going here 4 games in?
Our backs are running hard. We've left some yards out on the field at times, whether it be just missed opportunities with reads or missed opportunities with, not finishing blocks. I think that's probably one of the bigger areas where we can really improve on. There's two areas that we've got to get better at, and one is finishing, straining and finishing, and the explosive runs. You know, I think we've had one run where, you know, Keontae got out on a 30-yard run. You know, at the end of the Southern Cal game, we had an opportunity where if we had strained and finished our blocks for a half a count more, you know, we could have had a 90-yard touchdown run by Trey, or at least had the opportunity for it. And so those runs are the result of straining and finishing. So we've got to get better in that regard. You know, we're doing a fairly decent job of getting hats on hats, which is, you know, that's kind of the first step in the process, to make sure you're getting hats on the right hats. And then, you know, we got to do a better job of straining and finishing. And I think that, you know, we do that. We've got some really talented backs that can you know, help us in that regard. And then the nice part about it is when you have the wide receivers that we have out on the perimeter.
You're blocking well.
Well, not only that, but it's the one-on-one matchups, right? So now people have to say, they don't feel comfortable just leaving one guy on, you know, Colin, or one guy on LJ. And now it opens up opportunities in the run game. So it all works together.
Sure.
Coach, Seth, do you, I know you talked about some of the stuff you need to improve on, but do you feel like, you know, you're seeing enough good? Because I think the last 3 games, I don't know what you guys are averaging carries wise, but it's been over 40, and it seems like you guys have been able to at least stick to the run and keep the defense honest. What are you seeing that you really like, aside from the stuff you talked about that needs some work?
Like I said, the guys are playing hard. I mean, that's the big thing. They're playing hard, and they're trying to finish. We've been able to, you know, grind out some runs in the grind out some drives, I should say, in the second half of games, finishing games out by, you know, having a drive that kind of we're able to have some success late in the games. Those have been real positives, but we've got so much upside. You know, we can be so much better, and we're going to get there. It's a process. You know, I will say this: these guys work their tails off. They really do. There's, you know, in the O-line room, I mean, I really love their demeanor, their mentality, their approach to practice every day. We challenge them. They respond. It's not always pretty, but, you know, they're playing hard, and they're giving their all for Texas.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that stood out to me, I know, is that Shaq and Elijah, I mean, they have talked about, you're teaching them things that they've never heard in their careers. And so, I mean.
Well, I'm not sure how or what's been done, but I just, you know, I got a good group of guys. They work their butts off. I'm happy with them in that regard. We got to play better. We can play better. We will play better. You know, but, you know, they've been working their butts off. So
cool.
I'm excited about the group. We just got to keep pressing forward. And none of the other stuff matters right now. Like none of the other, like, you know, none of those games, they don't count anymore.
Right.
They don't count anymore. The only thing that counts is the next one.
Right.
So we're not going to, you know, get any points on the scoreboard this weekend because of what we've done the last couple of weeks. You got to go out and earn it every week. So,
Coach, when you look at K-State defensively, does it do your football so good knowing that kind of what you see is what you get, and when you play K-State, it's a buckle your chin strap?
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, they are a tough, physical, you know, this is going to be a meat-on-meat, bone-on-bone game. And, you know, that's how I've got great respect for their program, for the way they're built, the players they have. I mean, they are where they're supposed to be, right? They're in their gaps. They cancel out their gaps. They play their tails off. This is going to be it's a fist fight game. You know, it's going to be a physical game, and that's what you get with that group, and they're a reflection of, you know, their head coach, who's a Hall of Famer, and, you know, I mean, the guy's unbelievable. So we're looking forward to going up there and playing, but, you know, this ain't going to be, nothing about winning's easy. Everything's hard. And when you play tough physical group like this, you know, it's going to be a brawl. So
You've been around. Have you been there before?
no,
No. Really?
this is our first trip there.
Oh, that's cool.